Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and another tipping video on the channel. Today I'll be going through my predictions for this coming Easter round, so I hope you enjoy. Um, but yeah, of course, I'll first go through the games that occurred last round, starting with the Western Bulldogs, who defeated Brisbane in a massive upset to start the round. I definitely did not tip uh, Bulldogs. They shocked me in this game. I think they shocked everyone really, and yeah, made my tip of Brisbane winning by 57 points quite embarrassing in the end. So yeah, it was also good to see Eagle Hagen kick a bag of goals. I did predict him to do that. I didn't do it as my big call. My big call was the Dogs to score 5 or less goals in the first half, and that was correct. But it really shouldn't have been because there was a lot of missed opportunities from both teams in this game, not just the first half. And the Dogs were winning at half time by 8 points, I believe. So that was correct, but that's only because it was a low scoring game, which is not what I was predicting at all. And then, of course, game two, in a very, very, very scrappy, unconvincing win, Collingwood managed to defeat Richmond by 14 points. I tipped this by 15, and I was praying that they would just rush it over for a point in the dying seconds. They weren't able to, which is disappointing, but yeah, that didn't really matter. Doesn't bother me. What does bother me, though, is injuries. No rucks taking on the Lions this week, or no recognised rucks. We could decide to play Oscar Steen, but it's very, very unlikely. My big call was to go in to get 30 or more touches, which he did do, but he kicked 3 behinds instead of goals. So, yeah, if it wasn't for our inaccuracy, that big call could have been a possibility. And then North Melbourne. Maybe they aren't as good as we thought they were. Losing the Hawks in Tassie. The Hawks are always good in Tassie, and they had a lot to play for, especially after being smashed 2 weeks in a row. And Sam Mitchell v Clarko. Clarko was outcoached in the end, and yeah, congrats to Hawthorn. That was a very, very good win. Very, very convincing. The late out of Luke Davies-Juviak really, really hurt North Melbourne, and Jai Simpkin, of course, getting suspended. They were just big, and they made a big difference. My big call was for North to win the contestant footy by 50 or more, and I can tell you now, I haven't even looked, but there's no point looking because they lost the game. So there's no point looking. And then we got the most controversial and weirdest game of the round. I didn't watch the second half, but I've been told that it was very, very interesting. Carlton defeating GWS by only 10 points, which is a shock. Also, the biggest shock is they shouldn't have won the game, is what I've been told. The Giants were robbed late thanks to a few dissent calls that were very, very, very controversial. I don't know if I was a GWS fan, I would definitely feel robbed in that game. They probably should have run it in the end. The AFL's explanation was pretty poor, and if this does happen again in another game, I think they need to look at it a little bit more. But it was a very, very odd game, that's for sure. And Carlton realistically probably should have won it because they were the more inaccurate of the two teams, but both teams were very, very inaccurate. My big call was a total of 50 or more scoring shots to combine in the game, and there was, I'd say, just over 40, so not the worst call. And then, of course, the Saints 150th game taking on the Bombers. It was a great game. I went to it. It was very, very, very good. There was well, definitely one of the better games of the round, that's for sure. St Kilda got off to a flying start, and the Bombers they came back a little bit, but still didn't win the game. I did tip St Kilda, so I'm quite happy with that tip. My big calls for there were 150 or more tackles in the game, and both teams just didn't really want to tackle in this game, which is a little bit disappointing for that big call. Then, of course, the showdown, Port Adelaide taking on Adelaide. Everyone was expecting a Port response like me, but did not occur. The Crows were able to win convincingly in the end. Even though it was a really, really close game, the Crows took the most of their chances in the last term and kicked a lot of goals. I wasn't predicting them to win this game because Fogarty was out, but they were able to find other forward targets. And And then the first game on the Sunday, Geelong taking on Gold Coast, and the biggest shock of the round, I think I have to say, Gold Coast getting the job done and setting the reigning premier 0-3 for the first time since 1976. That's just ridiculous. Obviously, I tipped Geelong. I don't think anyone would have predicted Gold Coast. Like, if you did, then you're just a biased Suns fan or an absolute flog at tipping, really. But yeah, it was a really, really interesting game. That's for sure. Quite inaccurate. They probably should have won it by more in the end. The Suns, my big calls for Hawkins and Cameron had combined for 9 or more goals. Hawkins was very, very bad, and Cameron was a bit inaccurate. So, yeah, that did not occur. Then it was the Swans taking on the Dees at the G, and the Dees got off to a flying start. Then the Swans fought back, and then the Dees exploded and won the game by 50 points. Similar to the Bombers v Saints game, but not as big impact from the team that ended up winning. And yeah, it definitely wasn't a 50-point win. It was a lot closer than that. Melbourne, they were just playing some great football in the last quarter, and Sydney just couldn't stop it. My big call was a total of 20 or more goals combined in the first half, and there was a good 15-16, so not bad. Then the derby to finish off the round, Freo versus West Coast. What a sad game for West Coast. This could shape their season. More injuries, absolutely horrible. I'll read the list out a little bit later on in the video, but it's just ridiculous how many injuries they got in this game. Eventually cost them the game. I reckon if they had them players fit, especially seeming they were so important to their team, I reckon they could have come back and actually beaten Fremantle in this game. And I think they took the most of it, Freo, and were able to get some percentage and hurt the Eagles where it hurt most. And look, Simpson after the game said, look, there's going to be a good 6 to 7 players out next week with 2 other players. Not 100% sure who I know who these are, so they won't be included in the list. I'll explain later, but yeah, I don't know who they are as of yet, but yeah, that's just horrible signs for West Coast. And they'll have to get the troops ready for their game against Melbourne next week. Anyway, good win from Freo. My big call was a total of 130 or less points combined in the game, and that was nearly over in the first half. It was actually quite high scoring in the end. So I got 5 tips, my most for the round, not bad, and I only got the one big call correct, being the first game of the round, and it shouldn't have been. So a horrible round for my big calls. They were pretty big, these big calls. So, yeah, anyway, let's get straight into round 4, Easter footy. Brisbane taking on Collingwood. Should be an absolute beauty. I think the Pies are definitely starting to cement themselves as flag favourites. They were very, very good in that game against Richmond. Jordan Ngoe was massive. Nick Dacos is in Brownlow form. Pendlebury was very, very good. And our defence is very, very good with Frampton and Murphy. But now that Cameron and Cox are out, it's just massive, issues there. And for Brisbane, look, they were very, very disappointing. They need a response after their poor game against the Bulldogs. The only player that really was trying in the end was Josh Dunkley, and he actually had a real, he had to actually play for, against his old club. He had a lot to play for. I think the Lions have had 2 shock losses this season, 1 big response. Seeming it isn't the Gabba, I think it'll be close, but I'm going to go with a biased tip of Collingwood by 4 points. My big call, the Pies kicked the first 4 goals of the game, and that's where the game will be won. Then the Good Friday game, North Melbourne taking on Carlton. North were very, very disappointing with LDU and Simpkin out and need a response. They just couldn't win the ball through the contested footy, like my big call showed. And their defence was awful. And if Logue fails to, try and challenge the 1 game suspension he got handed, then I reckon Curnow and Mackay could have big games. Their midfield was just beaten convincingly, and without LDU and Simpkin, if you get rid of them, and then they're just horrible. And Yeah, it was just really, really bad, and North just couldn't defend in that game. Like, they were just playing some great football all for them. They just couldn't defend. Carlton, they got off lucky in the end. Their inaccuracy probably should have cost them the game, um, but they were very, very lucky. Like I said before, I didn't watch the second half, but the umpires were flogs apparently, and yeah, I mean, you got to get them games done. They weren't able to do it late last year. They're the games you got to get won, and they did it. So who knows? I reckon they should win this game by 7-8 points. My big call: Curnow kicks 5 or more goals, having a big game with North Melbourne players out. Especially their big defenders. Now Adelaide taking on Fremantle. Fremantle were lucky to get the win against West Coast in the derby a few days ago. They only won it because West Coast had injuries and no one left on the bench. They all fatigued out. Not much more I can say about Freo. They moved the ball a lot quicker. And as for Adelaide, they were very, very good in the showdown, especially Riley Philthorpe and Isaac Rankin. Very, very controversial decision there by Dawson winning the showdown medal. I wasn't expecting that, but they had a very, very good last quarter. I reckon the only thing for Adelaide now is just the consistency. They need to build up a full game performance, and if they can do that against Freo, I think they can win it, and I think they will. Bold call, possibly. Maybe, I'm not sure. Freo haven't showed much this season. I'm going to go Crows by 13 points in this one. My big call: 10 or more lead changes occur in the game. I think it'll be a brilliant game. Now, Richmond taking on the Bulldogs at the G. The Dogs responded in a big way against the Lions in their Thursday night blockbuster. And Ugal Hagan and Marcus Bontempelli led the way for the Dogs. Bontempelli was just everywhere, always trying. He's tried in all three of their games. And yeah, he just wasn't going to walk off the ground with the Owl. So yeah, Dogs got their season started now, which is pretty good. They'll come in with a bit more confidence. Will they get blown away though against Richmond? Probably not. Richmond need to get some of their players back. Jacob Hopper and Dusty should be returning to their team. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. It was pretty much a domination, and I reckon Richmond will respond and win this game by 14 points. My big call: Tigers come back from 3 or more goals at any stage of the game. Then the next game is the Suns taking on the Saints at Marvel. Should be another interesting game. As I said, I went to the Saints game, and apart from little injuries that happened late in the second half, they were pretty much perfect, and it was a pretty great night for their 150th anniversary. Mason Woods in doubt with a shoulder injury, and Jimmy Webster got a bit concussed and fractured his cheekbone or something and will be out for a good 4 to 6 weeks. And for the Suns, they responded in a big way against the Cats, and Lukosius was brilliant, kicking 5 goals, proving that he's definitely one of their most damaging forwards. And Geelong's defence just couldn't do anything about it. They are the worst defence ranked at the comp at the moment, so they'll also need a response from that. Anyways, I think the Saints win this game by 27 points. I reckon it'll be a lot closer than it actually is, like the Essendon game, but St Kilda kick away late. But my big call: Saints kick the first 5 goals of the game. They've done it the last 2 weeks. I think they can do it again. Now, Sydney taking on Port Adelaide as the other Saturday night blockbuster. Another pretty good game. It should be. Port Adelaide need a response. There is one player that I'm definitely looking out for a response, and that's Tom Jonas, their captain. He's combined for under 10 disposals in the past 2 weeks, and he's just not contributing, and he's giving up heaps of goals. Isaac Rankin kicked 2 on him early, and then they moved him to someone else. Wasn't 100% sure who it was, but yeah, Tom Jonas, you just got to be better than that. I mean, he is their captain, but yeah, you just got to be better than that. And I think Sydney will respond as well, like Port Adelaide in this game. Sydney just couldn't stop Melbourne's explosiveness, and if no team can, then Melbourne are going to be a real hard team to beat, that's for sure, and smashed them in the contested footy. I think the Swans need to bounce back from that. Port Adelaide are a very, very good contestant footy winners, so that might be a little bit tough. I think Sydney win this game by 26 points. My big call, Port don't recall a behind in the second half. A little bit of a different big call. Then the first game on Easter, Essendon taking on the Giants. Should be a pretty good game. Bombers, just couldn't get it done late. It was a very, very mighty and very, very mature comeback from them. Very, very good. And I like how they looked in the middle late. 4 goals down, 5 minutes to go. You got to have something. And they kicked into the middle and hope, and it didn't work. But it nearly did. And if they did, that could have sparked something. I like that because that's what Collingwood do. So another year, Essendon might be able to get that down. GWS, they were robbed. Toby Greene was held very, very well. That's why they lost the game, in my opinion. Toby Greene is just so important. So Bombers Bombers by 25 points. Toby Greene kicks 3 or more goals in this game. Now, the other Easter blockbuster will be the Dees heading over to Optus to take on the Eagles, the battered and bruised Eagles. Now, let's read out this injury list, shall we? Alex Witherden, concussion. He'll be gone for a week, possibly another week, depending on the seriousness. Did look pretty serious. Liam Ryan, don't know how long he's going to be out for, but looked pretty serious. Luke Shuey, obviously very, very frustrating. I mean, he punched a hole into the bloody wall. He'll be out for a good month or two, I reckon. McGovern looked hugely serious. Could miss half a year, even the whole year. Cripps, broken ankle, probably the year. I mean, that's just all horrible. 5 substitutions. What was that young kid's name again? I forgot. Their pick, Hewitt or something. Elijah Hewitt. He came in like the second quarter. Like the very start of the second quarter, when West Coast had 2 injuries in that quarter. Then they had 2 in the third, I think, and 1 in the last minute of the third, but was ruled out in like the 4th term. So it's just ridiculous, really, when you think about it. Absolutely horrible. Melbourne, they were brilliant, especially Jacob Van Ruin on his debut. We've been waiting a long time for him. People saying he looks like a senior AFL player playing in the VFL. Their tactical substitute I also want to count on was absolutely brilliant with Ben Brown subbed out for the game for Melksham. It just works so well, and that's why Melbourne were able to smash them so well. I think the Dees are going to be a real good team this year. I think they'll beat West Coast in this game by a solid 44 points. My big call, the Dees kick a run of 6 or more goals in any quarter. I reckon there'd be a bigger one than that, like even 10 goals, up to 10 goals, I reckon. But I'm going to go safer with 6. Then the Easter Monday blockbuster should be an absolute brilliant game. Was last year. Hawthorn taking on Geelong. Geelong 0-3. Hawthorn probably unexpectedly not 0-3. But yeah, look, Geelong just have to win this game. Their defence is ranked the lowest in the league. They just can't win it out of the middle, except for Patrick Dangerfield, who's just brilliant. Like the Dogs, Dangerfield and Bontempelli are just trying for their clubs, but they just can't seem to win it. It's just really, really interesting to see where this one will go. Moore and Day were absolutely brilliant for Hawthorn. They absolutely starred. Tyler Brockman was good in front of goal as well. I reckon it'll be close. I reckon it'll be really, really close, actually. Probably one of the games of the round. Now, most people probably tipping a Geelong by, 3 goals. So I think that's pretty safe for them. But I reckon Hawthorn will challenge them and be in front for most of the game. I reckon Geelong will win it by 7 points. My big call, there are a combined of 40 or more free kicks rewarded in the game. Also a little bit of a different big call. So I hope you enjoyed the tipping video. Stay tuned for next week, where I'll be doing my predictions on Gather Round. It'll be a little bit different, seeming it is the big round of the season. Hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for some more great videos coming out on the channel soon.